This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd, reminding you that we and the show you are listening to are proud members of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Find out more and check out all of the other great shows and content at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, the slayer of non-threats, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. All too often, gun owners and gun culture are portrayed in the worst possible ways in the media. This podcast aims to counter that narrative by shining a light on the members of gun culture who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, while IDPA members make up just a tiny fraction of the overall gun-owning public, I think they're a representative cross-section of that demographic, from all walks of life, rich, poor, and in between, young and old, men and women, patriotic, caring, friendly, and outgoing. And this podcast is about them. Today, you're going to meet one of these awesome people. Now, before we get started, I want to talk to you about Gun Mag Warehouse. Do you need more magazines? Who doesn't, right? Magazines wear out over time, they get damaged, they get lost, and depending on the state you're in, they might get banned. Maybe you just, you got a new gun, you need extra magazines for it, or maybe you want some magazines to set aside to use for dry fire. Make sure that you've got plenty by visiting Gun Mag Warehouse. I use them myself, the prices are great, shipping is fast. Visit unloadpodcast.com/mags, and when you buy, we'll earn a small commission to help keep the lights on here at Unload and Show Clear. So go visit them at unloadpodcast.com/mags. All right, time to get on with the show. Here is today's special guest. Our guest for this week's show is David Jackson from Oxford, Mississippi. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lloyd. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. Tell us a little about yourself. Give us some background on who David Jackson is and what you do for a living there in Oxford, Mississippi.
Well, I guess first and foremost, I'm a family man, a wife, Jenna, and 3 boys that love to do everything, outdoors, indoors, whatever you can come up with. They have a good time with it. As far as an occupation goes, I'm over the right-of-way maintenance for the local power company here in Oxford. So it's kind of what I do.
All right. Over the right-of-way maintenance. Are you climbing up on poles?
No, sir. I'm over contracting crews that trim trees and maintain undergrowth and stuff like that for the right-of-way.
Gotcha.
For the power lines.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're a member, you shoot at 3 different clubs there in the Oxford area. Tell us about those 3 clubs and the ones that you participate in or with the most.
Yeah, so what I have is within an hour drive of home, DeSoto Rifle and Pistol Club, which is in Como, Mississippi. Ridge Crossing Shooting Club, just north of Tupelo, and then Memphis Sports Shooting Association in Memphis, Tennessee. And anyway, I get to shoot with a lot of different people. I don't have to drive very far. I've got an option to shoot 3 weekends a month, which hardly ever happens. I think I would not be a married family man if I tried to get away with that every month. But anyway, so I kind of pick a couple and shoot every other weekend if the schedule allows.
Very good. So each of them has a monthly match?
Yeah, they all have one, different Saturdays. It's close enough for so many people to shoot multiple places that they kind of coordinate with each other and fix it where everybody has their own scheduled weekend to do a match. And that way everybody can go from one place to the other and work it in whenever they want to.
So being from Mississippi, I'm guessing that you grew up with hunting and guns. You were exposed to it at an early age?
That's right. Some of the earliest memories that I have, just spending time with my parents, my father especially, involve shooting to some extent. Always just, kind of plinking and stuff like that. as I got older, started hunting a little bit. Still do that a little bit, but I have more fun with the competitive shooting side of things. So it's kind of what I get into a little more now. But yeah, my whole family, uncles and grandparents and stuff like that, all shot, and grew up with people that knew how to shoot, extremely well. So for me, it was always just one of those things that everybody in the whole world knows how to shoot a gun, and never thought anything different about it. So I never really.
Kind of strange if you don't.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
what was the first gun you bought for yourself?
The first gun I bought for myself was actually a hunting rifle, a Weatherby Mark V action fiber mark 257 Weatherby was the caliber. Primarily a deer hunting cartridge for some reason. I just had to have that. $2 a round, it cost me, $5, $6 to go take a couple of shots, make sure it's sight in for hunting season. And then after that, I couldn't afford to shoot a deer anymore. But anyway, yeah, it's a nice rifle. I still have it. I don't know if I'll ever part ways with it. And I guess one of my boys will end up with it at some point or another. So
very nice. So how did you get interested? How did you go from hunting to shooting IDPA or getting interested in competitive shooting?
Well, honestly, I grew up watching, anything that had to do with hunting or shooting on TV. American Shooter, I guess is what it was called when I was growing up, turned into Shooting USA. They always had, different shows with all the different sports, Bianchi Cup, IDPA, USPSA, IPSC, stuff like that. So I was always interested in it, but never really had the drive to go try it until I got older. Anyway, then I was too nervous, too scared to go out and try it. I growing up where everybody that I knew shot pretty well. I was just an average guy and didn't think, was scared to go out and shoot with the professionals that you see on TV. You just automatically assume that's what everybody does. Anyway, then I got into the idea of concealed carry and defensive pistol use and took an advanced class. And the instructors for the class were law enforcement / competitive shooters, both of them master class shooters. And along the way, they made comments about how, competition, USPSA or, more or less IDPA to an extent was even better for getting out and practicing with your carry gear and, working on gun handling and stuff like that. So I took that consideration after the class for about a month, thinking about it, hitting up other people that were in the class that shot with us and stuff like that. And nobody would go do it. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to break down and go to a match and see what happens. And that's how I got started. All it took was one time. And after that one time, it was, when's the next match? When can I schedule this and go do it? So I jumped in head first after that.
Do you remember that first? I vividly remember my first IDPA match, mainly because of how many of the buzzer brain. But do you remember that first match?
I remember almost every single detail except for where all the targets were, what each target was in the stages. I got there early, read on the website, hey, please show up early to help with setup and, stay late for tear down. I took all that to heart. I got there way too early. I was the first person to pull up at the range. I'm sitting in my truck looking around, am I at the right place? And, a few minutes later, people start rolling in or whatever, and I get out and they treated me like I showed up every weekend. I get out of the truck, expecting to have people like, who are you? What are you doing here? And they just start off a conversation with you. I actually remember one guy, JB Swift. I still talk to him. We shoot pretty regular when our schedules work out. He kind of took me under his wing right off the bat. And while we were setting up stages, he was explaining, kind of the rules and stuff. And I'd done a lot of research, watching YouTube videos, and I even got on the website and read the rule book a little bit. Probably still haven't read the whole thing because it changes so often, but
right.
Anyway, so that was the first thing that really blew me away, was how nice and friendly everybody at the match was. And, then from there, I got my first piece of unsolicited shooting advice, which is pretty common, I guess, no matter what you do. But it was from a fairly famous shooter in the area, Cody Ray. And the advice he gave me, I still use to this day. I was working on the kind of the tactical side, reload, where you insert a mag at slide lock and you go over the top of the slide and pull it back and slingshot it or whatever you want to call it. And it worked, but it was slow. And that's what he pulled me to the side. And he's like, I can tell you've taken classes from law enforcement or something of that nature, but by the way you handle your gun. And I said, well, that's where I learned this from. And he said, well, let me show you something that's a little bit faster. If you're going to keep doing this competitively, you may want to practice this. And he showed me, a couple of tricks and talked about inserting a mag and using your weak hand thumb to work the slide release, to get a grip on the gun faster and get back to shooting. And, I remember thinking, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I just got through taking a class, a month and a half ago from, a law enforcement officer, and this is what he said to do. Well, then, wasn't very long after that I learned that Cody Ray knows exactly what he's talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I started practicing the way he showed me, and that's the way I do my reloads now. So there you go.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with advice from Cody Ray. There's no question about that.
He knows a lot about it. He's been doing it for a long time and been doing around a lot of experienced people. So kind of helps out a lot.
Yeah. What's your favorite division? What division do you compete in most often, and what gun do you use?
Almost primarily stock service pistol. I've shot a couple of local matches and one sanctioned match, ESP. Either way, I shoot a Glock 34 for those. I've got some other nice guns. I've got a CZ Shadow, SP01, got a STI 2011. I've got a nice 1911. I just, for whatever reason, I've never really been big on changing guns. I just pick one and I shoot it. I'm going to shoot it at least for a whole season. If I decide to change after that, then I look into it. But kind of stuck with just one thing. Even if I shot different divisions, I still use the same gun.
And you're now a 4-gun master. Is that the key to that? Just picking a gun and getting really, really good with it?
I think it helps. Just little subtleties between one gun to the next is enough to affect you. It may not be a lot, but it changes some. I don't know that the gun makes a huge difference in how you perform for the most part. You do hear shooters talk about, I was a sharpshooter until I bought, this gun, and now I'm an expert. And I don't know that the gun made the difference. I think just the amount of practice time they put into shooting their new gun that they're excited about is what made the difference, And I'm a gun guy, so when I compete, I use the same gun. But now when I go to the range to practice, I'll throw all my guns into my bag and I'll shoot them all. But when I get really serious and get close to time to shoot a sanctioned match or something like that, I don't touch anything but the gun I'm going to use in a competition. So.
What was your first sanctioned match? Do you remember?
My first sanctioned match was the Battle in Benton 3. I actually started, I can tell you the first club match I ever shot was October of 2015. And the DeSoto Rifle and Pistol Club scheduled the Mississippi State Championship in October of 2016.
Yep.
And so I decided that, hey, that's going to be my first sanctioned match. I'll go a full year, kind of practicing and see where I end up. And I got closer and closer to October, and I started realizing there's going to be something that, nerves or whatever that get to me before that match. And I really want to do well there. And got to looking at the schedule, and there was a match in Arkansas, just 3 hours away. Talked to my wife, and she's like, hey, well, I'll go to Little Rock. I'm sure they have places to shop or whatever while you shoot. So we loaded up and we took off to Little Rock. Spent the night, went and shot the match. Honestly, the most nervous I've ever been in my whole life for no reason. I shot terrible. Had like a miss on the first 2 stages, and the longest shot was like 7 yards. And so anyway, I doubled the points down of most of my local matches in 2 stages, and so I was like, man, this is crazy. I don't even know what's wrong with me. But I ended up finishing second in my class and division, so I was happy with that. I brought home plaque and got to kind of got the first match jitters taken care of.
Right.
Then October rolled around and shot my second match, and that was when I got I won expert in SSP and got bumped to master in my second match. So it was pretty special to me. Happened in in our own state championship. So that was something that I was proud of.
Very nice. Can you think of, in all the different matches that you've been to, is there a specific stage that you remember that sticks out that was, fun or elaborate, or just, wow, I wasn't expecting that, or, that sticks out in your head as either I want to do that again, or I hope to God I never see that again?
Honestly, nothing that I can think of just really jumps out at me as wow, this stage was, spectacular or disastrous or anything like that. I guess because I shoot at 3 different clubs locally, they all have, all 3 match directors have their own kind of way of doing stages. And so I see so much variety.
Right.
The matches in Memphis, they tend to have a little bit, longer shots than what you would normally see in a sanctioned match. The matches at Como, they tend to be a little more open area, a little bit, wider transitions and stuff like that.
Right.
And then Ridge Crossing Shooting Club, that's just north of Tupelo, is the area coordinator, actually owns that range, and he comes up with the hardest moving targets I think that you'll ever encounter in a match, period. And, they're on your local Saturday match. So then when you go to a big sanction match somewhere else and you see what a normal mover is like, whether it's a swinger or a clamshell or a drop turner, you feel like you've got all day long to put rounds in the targets. I guess that's just one thing about having the variety to shoot that I have. So nothing really ever jumps out at me.
Right. So being the family man and with the kids, how often do you get to practice? How much time do you devote to dry fire and live fire? And what kind of a balance do you think is best between those 2 types of practice?
Well, I do dry fire just about every night during the week before, within a few weeks of a sanctioned match at least. This year, I hit a pretty long dry spell. I shot Louisiana State back in March, and then I initially planned to shoot the Razorback shootout at Casa, and it didn't work out for me. So I went from March until about the end of June, first part of July, without really doing much IDPA shooting at all. I shot a PRS, long range precision rifle match, once during the summer just to try it out. But anyway, that was kind of an embarrassing moment for me, so we won't even bring that up past this. But so I didn't do a whole lot of practice, and I'm trying to get back in the swing of things now. But when I'm really serious about it, I look for anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of dry fire a night. Usually do that Sunday evening through Thursday evening. Friday, I try to rest. I try to grip the gun hard and stuff, so my hands are always tired and kind of worn out. So take a break on Friday before I shoot on a Saturday, just to kind of let things get back to normal. As far as live fire goes, when I was really trying to get good, I would go shoot live fire every other Saturday, and I try to shoot a match, in between those. So I was doing some form of shooting every weekend, but at least 2 weekends a month, it was, with the wife and the boys and, at our own range and kind of doing stuff with them too. So, but I would say, if you could do 80% dry fire, 20% live fire, just if you could get you 100 or 200 rounds a weekend of live fire, it would be awesome.
Right. It doesn't take much.
No, it doesn't. You can practice so much of the critical stuff in dry fire. If just some imagination goes a long ways. I've read books on it, several books from different people. They all kind of give you the same info. It's just, how they deliver it and whether or not you understand what they're trying to tell you from one to the other. But yeah, that's kind of the critical thing for me is just the time and money aspect of it. Dry fire gets you so far that if you really focus on the right things, then when you go to the range to do live fire, you can shoot 100 or 150 rounds, which is, to some people that's a lot. To really the high end shooters, they're shooting that many rounds a day during the, the main part of their season. That's not a lot, but I've kind of figured that that's worked for me. So it just depends on, you have to focus on it. You can't just go out there and plink through 100 rounds and call it good. If you really want to get the most of your time and your money, you have to kind of go in with drills in mind and areas to work on and focus on those areas.
And that leads me into my next question, which was, tell us, with the idea of getting the most out of your live fire practice, talk about some of the drills that you like to run every time you go to the range, when you're really serious and you're preparing for a major match. What are some of the drills that you, or pick out one drill that you absolutely do every time you go to the range?
Really, I don't have a single drill. I've got like a 125 round routine that I have it written down, pretty well memorized, where I go out and I focus, just starting out just drawing and getting a shot on target. And then I work on, splits, just getting 2 or 3 shots on target. Mm-hmm. And then I go to one where I work on transition drills, where I transition between close targets and then wider transitions. And I work on changing up distances. You can put really fast splits on a 7-yard target that's, wide open in front of you, but then you get out to 10 or 15 yards or even 25 yards. You have to be able to slow down and watch your sights and see what the gun is doing and let it tell you when, how fast you can shoot. And learning how to go from a close target to a far target, back to a close target or something like that in a array really makes a big difference. I focus on some shooting on the move, especially with the way some of the new rules have been changed, where they used to tell you had to shoot on the move, or you were in the open and you're pretty well mandated to stand still and shoot. Now they kind of give you options, and I found a lot of times if you can make yourself shoot on the move accurately, getting from one place to another while you're doing that saves you a lot of time on stage and makes a big deal. So,
yep.
Position entry and exits are another thing I like to practice a lot. Getting to a spot to shoot with the gun up and ready to shoot goes a long ways. And then leaving it as soon as you get through shooting, or as quickly as you can, makes a big difference. I used to do a lot of lollygagging. I'd get to a position, the gun would be somewhere down around my waist. I may not even have both hands on it yet, and I'd stop and get the perfect stance and raise up and shoot the target and stand there and kind of admire my work. Were those 0 downs? Oh, there's a 1 down, but I'm not going to make it up. It's only half a second, and just kind of lollygag along to the next spot. And,
but you burned a half a second admiring it.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, you start to learn where you can shave time. It makes a big difference. I actually learned from several other more experienced shooters a lot of the mistakes I was making when I started out. And watching, there's one shooter that used to shoot at our club that was an older guy, and you watch him walk across the range, you're like, man, this guy's like 2 weeks from needing a walker. And then the buzzer would go off and he would shoot a stage, and you just sit back and watch and not think, well, it's not that fast. And then you'd hear the time and you're like, wow, that was really fast. He beat me by 3 seconds, And so then I started kind of watching and seeing what he, some of the things he was doing, and it made sense why he was beating me so bad. So kind of started mimicking him, and when I could move faster than he could and I shot with the same efficiency that he did, it kind of helped me get ahead of him a little bit.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up here, what is it that makes you, why do you keep coming back to IDPA? There are other shooting sports out there. There are other things that you could be doing with your time, especially as a family man. What is it that keeps you coming back? Why is it you're passionate about this sport? What is it you love about it?
Probably the number one thing for me is the fact that the people that you meet are some of the best people you'll ever run across in your life. And, it is truly an international sport. I've met people from all kinds of different places, different countries around the world. Never shot a match and had a conversation with somebody and left there thinking, man, that person was a jerk. I hope I never see him again. It's, truly one of those things where people just go to have a good time, from all walks of life. Gun owners are usually painted as, be a narrow spectrum of people. And when you get out and actually see who's out there and who's shooting and who's having a good time with it, you learn that's really very far from the truth. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I have more friends that I spend time and talk to regularly through shooting than I have in the whole rest of my life, growing up, just about, it seems like. So I think that's the biggest part for me.
Awesome. David Jackson, thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much to our special guest for coming on the show. If you know somebody in the IDPA community who deserves some recognition, I'd love to talk to them. Send me an email at Lloyd, Lloyd, at unloadpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode and listen to past episodes at unloadpodcast.com. And if you like what you hear on the show and you'd like to support us, help keep the lights on, pay the bills, we would love your support. Visit patreon.com/unload and make a small monthly contribution to help continue what we're doing here. Tune in again next week for another edition of Unload and Show Clear.